Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we dive deep into one of the most emotionally charged and politically sensitive stories unfolding in South Africa, a battle for justice that has taken decades to reach the courts. This is the story of families who lost their loved ones to apartheid-era atrocities and who now claim that their long journey for truth, justice, and closure was deliberately sabotaged, not just by apartheid enforcers, but by the very democratic government they hoped would defend them. At the heart of this battle is a massive R167 million constitutional damages lawsuit, launched by the Foundation for Human Rights and 25 families of victims, including the son of the late Fort Carlatter of the Cradock 4. The lawsuit was filed in the Pretoria High Court and could very well reshape how South Africa deals with its dark history of state-sponsored violence. These families argue that the democratic state, under former Presidents Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma, did more than just delay justice. They say justice was actively obstructed. And not by accident, but through calculated political decisions and backroom negotiations. According to court papers, these talks involved top apartheid generals and ANC cabinet ministers, all aimed at avoiding the prosecution of 358 perpetrators identified by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission who were denied amnesty. The TRC promised victims and their families that if perpetrators didn't come forward with the full truth, they'd face criminal prosecution. But that never happened. Instead, victims waited and waited. Now, these families believe they know why. They say secret negotiations were held to secure political peace and stability, at the cost of truth and accountability. They refer to these hidden negotiations as the betrayal. Conducted under Mbeki, and later Zuma, these talks allegedly sought to shield former apartheid generals from prosecution. The generals, led by Const and Viljoen, reportedly demanded blanket amnesty. The ANC wanted selective amnesty for those who told the full truth. But when the talks failed in 2003, the families claimed the ANC continued to interfere with the National Prosecuting Authority, effectively barring TRC prosecutions once and for all. Fast forward to 2024. President Cyril Ramaphosa and his government initially opposed the lawsuit. But, shockingly, within days of the story going public, the presidency and several ministers withdrew their opposition. In a powerful statement, the presidency said it understands the pain the families have endured and would support mediation and a commission of inquiry into why the prosecutions never took place. But not everyone agrees. Former President Thabo Mbeki and his then Justice Minister, Brigitte Mabandla, have now filed to intervene in the case. They're not named as respondents, but they say the allegations are too damaging to ignore. In court affidavits, they describe the claims as defamatory and accuse the families of smearing their character. Mbeki insists he never interfered in the independence of the NPA and that any talks with the generals were about Afrikaner issues like the folk state and not TRC prosecutions. But this version of events contradicts a mountain of prior reports, court affidavits, and even interviews with generals and ANC insiders who confirm that discussions were very much focused on avoiding criminal trials. And this is where the case gets even more complicated and tragic. The Kulamani Support Group, representing thousands of elderly apartheid victims, has been protesting for over a year outside the Constitutional Court. These are elderly citizens who have been living with trauma and injustice for decades. They say they want reparations for all 21,748 victims identified by the TRC. Their perseverance is a haunting reminder of South Africa's unfinished business. While this lawsuit is seeking money, the families have made it clear this isn't about profit. It's about justice. The R167 million would go toward a trust fund to support overdue prosecutions, honor those who died, and memorialize their stories so future generations never forget. Still, there are glaring contradictions. The very person expected to lead those overdue prosecutions, National Director of Public Prosecutions Shamila Batohi, is opposing the lawsuit. That raises serious questions about the NPA's willingness or ability to finally act. On the other side, former security branch operative Craig Williamson, a key figure in apartheid-era crimes, has called out the NPA for reopening cases only against state perpetrators and not those from liberation movements. He was granted amnesty by the TRC for bombing ANC offices and assassinating anti-apartheid activists Ruth First and Jeanette Schoon. He says both sides must be held accountable, or the process will forever be seen as biased and incomplete. So where does this leave South Africa today? With reopened TRC cases, mounting court battles, and questions of credibility haunting the country's justice system, one thing is clear: South Africa's truth is still contested terrain. And for the families who have waited more than 30 years for justice, time is running out. If this case succeeds, it could finally pry open the doors of accountability and push the state to reckon with its own failures. If it doesn't, the message to victims may once again be, justice delayed is justice denied. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please give it a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth coverage of South African politics and justice. See you next time.